All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening for the presentation of LinkedIn for the job search, new user interface. This session, as Mr. Shapiro mentioned, is being recorded. So please keep your cameras and microphones off during this time. If you do have questions, though, there'll be times in between during the presentations you can ask. And then, of course, after there's going to be plenty of time. But let me introduce myself real fast. My name is Russell Carr. I'm the Director of Career Services here at University of the Cumberlands. I'm on the main campus. I know several of you, probably most of you, are online, being in the graduate program or possibly the executive program. But I am on the main campus, so if any of you are here on campus, need any help or assistance with anything, stop by my office. And of course, you can always email me. I'll be glad to help you with that. I want to go ahead and introduce our guest presenter tonight, Mr. Chaim Shapiro. Mr. Shapiro is the director of the Office for Student Success at Touro College, freelance writer, public speaker, social media consultant, specializing in LinkedIn. So at this time, I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Shapiro and let him take it from here.
Well, thank you so much. It is such a pleasure being back. I was here last night, but this is my third year coming to speak at Cumberland, maybe actually in person next time, because I haven't been to Kentucky in a month of Sundays, as some people say, potentially. But the idea here is hopefully we're going to go through LinkedIn, and we want to make sure that we go through everything you need to do in order to maximize your LinkedIn profile. So that's where we're going to start, with maximizing your LinkedIn profile. Because before you do anything else on LinkedIn, before you start engaging people, before you start posting, connecting, looking for jobs, you want to make sure that your LinkedIn profile is optimized. I like to say garbage in, garbage out. If you're actually promoting yourself, if you're promoting yourself negatively because your LinkedIn profile is not optimized, you're not really helping yourself. After we go through the LinkedIn profile, I want to get into how to look for jobs. If you have time towards the end, we're going to go into also other things about searching and engaging on people's posts and things like that. Because it asks people to mute themselves if they can, because I'm getting some feedback here. And if we have time, even after that, I'm going to show you also how to post yourself in order to get some posts done. Now, as Russell mentioned, there'll be plenty of time for questions, but one of the reasons that I do this session as a live demo, as opposed to using a PowerPoint presentation like most of my colleagues do, is because I want to show you the functionality of LinkedIn. So if you have any particular questions, or if I show you something you weren't sure how I did it, just feel free to either put that in the chat or jump in when I ask for questions and ask those questions. I'll be glad to show you the functionality, because really the purpose is to make sure that I show you how to do all the things you need to do. Now, the first thing you need to do on LinkedIn is to get into the edit mode of your profile. Now, the easiest way to do that is to simply click on your picture right over here. And this is going to take you directly into the edit mode of your profile. I try to normalize something slightly different. There's a little me button up over here, and click view profile here. This will take you into the same place, but you see this has a more robust menu here. So I think it makes it a lot easier for people to do more things here on LinkedIn. So that's why I encourage people to always go this way in case they need to get into their settings and their privacy. So this is the main LinkedIn page. I'm in my personal edit mode. I once had a client was very concerned. He thought that anybody could edit his profile because they have access to this page with their URL, but obviously this is password protected. Only you'll have access to this page to make those changes. And what I want to do now is go through the most important parts of LinkedIn, what I call the LinkedIn triumvirate. I don't know if we have any history majors here, but in Roman history in the early Republic of the United States, you talk about the first triumvirate, the second triumvirate, but it refers to the three most important things on LinkedIn. And those three things are the three things that show up everywhere you do on LinkedIn. Those are your photo, your name, and this right here. Anybody know what this is called? They want to jump in? Some people call it a tagline, but it's actually called your LinkedIn headline. Very, very important things. And I want to go through this piece by piece. I'm going to start with your name and your LinkedIn headline and move over to your photo. Now, where you actually start editing this is this button right over here. Yes.
Come here. Come here.
So where you actually start editing it is this button right over here. You click this button. This will take you into the edit mode of your basic information. So here's your name. Now, this might sound simple, but it's actually could be a little bit more complicated than you might actually think it is, because a lot of people want to put things like, for example, I have a master's in education. So some people might want to put Chaim Shapiro, then put a comma and start typing in MED. I advise against that because I think LinkedIn could give you the opportunity to do that if they want, but they don't have that room for suffixes. So I usually advise against doing it. Plus, as you become more of an advanced user, if people are trying to tag you, it makes it more difficult when you have things besides your actual name up there. Okay. The other thing here is they have additional name. Now, these used to be say maiden name. They switched it to additional name, which is actually a much better thing. For example, maiden names would be fine if somebody has a former married name or the name before they were married, they could actually include that. But I work with a lot of Orthodox Jewish students who might have a Hebrew name like Chaim that their friends know them as, but their secular name could be something like Howard. This would give them the opportunity to write the additional name Howard in here so that people who know them as Chaim will still find their profiles, and people that know them as Chaim will also still find their profile. So that's how you set up your name here correctly. Just put it in as is without any additions to it. Now I'm going to skip by the pronouns. We're going to come back to the pronouns in just a couple of minutes here. But this right here is the most important real estate in all of social media professionally, because this is where you tell people what it is about you that makes you the kind of person they want to engage with. If somebody's looking to hire you, either as a vendor or potentially at a particular company, what do you bring to the table that makes you the kind of person that they would actually want to hire? Now, this might default to something like student at the University of Cumberland, which is important, but that's not your main selling point. Your main selling point is what you're going to bring to the table, what problems you're going to be able to solve for people. So if you see right over here, and I'm going to click out of this so you can see the full array of my profile headline, I tell people everything it is that I could actually do for them here. So they know exactly what I do and who I am. If they see my name and my LinkedIn profile, they can potentially click on it because they see exactly what it is that I do. So a lot of students, for example, might write aspiring computer science professional with experience in UI, UX design, dedicated to helping the next generation of women in coding via Girls Who Code. I had a student who put something like that. I thought it was an absolutely excellent headline because it said who they are, what they have expertise in addition to actually showing that they're actually involved in the community. So this is going to be very different for different people, but I definitely think you want to make different ideas and say different things and make it more compelling. You don't want it to be a simple thing. You also see here that I separate different ideas with this little dash here, which gives a little bit more fluidity of motion, but more importantly, people tend not to like big blocks of text on social media. So this separates ideas so people could see that a little bit better. Now I'm just going to show you the photo, and after the photo, we're going to go to your questions. Your photo is right over here. You click on this right over here. It gives you the opportunity to view or edit. Now you can play around with this. You can zoom in, zoom out, straighten, add filters, all sorts of different things to get this exactly the way that it promotes you in the best possible way. And when it's ready, you click save photo, and that's actually going to save the photo for you up here. One of the most common questions I get when I'm giving you sessions are, what should I be wearing in this photo? And I think that really depends on where you're applying. Where's your target audience? So if you're like me, applying for jobs or things that would be relevant to giving presentations at colleges, you would be wearing a suit. If I was applying for a job at JP Morgan Chase or Goldman Sachs, I'd be wearing a suit, more formal clothing. Now, if I was actually applying for a job at, let's say, Google, then I'd probably be wearing clothes that's a little more casual, because the idea is you want to be able to fit in and show that you're part of the actual team. So what I would wear is the clothing you would wear if you were actually at a networking event with some of the senior level folks at the company that you would like to kind of work at in that industry. So that's sort of what you like to wear. So any questions up at this point about the LinkedIn Triumvirate, your name, your LinkedIn headline, and your photo? I see there's a chat in here. Okay, so there's only a few people are muted, so hopefully everybody will mute themselves. But if anyone has any questions, now's the time to jump in. If you want to unmute yourself for a second and jump in with any questions. If not, I'll move on to the next thing here. And I'll start moving on just in case. But I definitely wanted you guys to ask me questions. So I'll move on and click the pencil here again.
Good.
Yes.
So is it advisable then to like change your photo like for a specific period of time, let it stay on there and then change it after a specific?
So I think, I wouldn't change it on a weekly or daily basis. I think, every couple of years it's a good idea to change it. One of the things that actually ends up happening is more people start seeing you on LinkedIn. They start associating you and your account with your photo. So if you're changing it constantly, people don't feel that same association with you. But just take a look at this. You see a picture of a person here, and here's where there's no picture. Not criticizing anybody, but I'm much more likely to relate to a person when I see their picture. But if I know this person, I'm much more likely to associate that picture with their account. So if I'm changing it a couple of times a year, it's going to strike them as a little bit weird and a little bit funny. Great question. Thank you for that question. If there are any other questions, jump in, please. Brian, your question?
Yeah, so right. So because I was reading an article, one of those that advise you how to like set up your resume, and they were saying that you should go in and edit your LinkedIn profile like every 2 weeks or regularly.
Well,
So
no.
that-
So just to differentiate between two things, we're talking about editing your LinkedIn photo. I would not do very often. Editing your
Okay.
LinkedIn profile, you can do much more often than that. Now, I wouldn't change the headline that frequently, but as you take on new things and new accomplishments and accomplish new things, and you have new bullets to add, definitely add those. Yes, on a regular basis, 100%. It's the photo that I wouldn't change on a regular basis. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Okay, good. So I'm going to skip right back over here to show you just about the personal pronouns as well, and a couple other things here in this main page. So this is about a year and a half old. LinkedIn has given folks the opportunity to include their personal pronouns if they choose. You see here, there are pre-selected choices. If this lets me push the drop down, come on now. Let me switch mouses and see if that works better. There we go. So you can choose she, her, he, him, they, them as the ones that it selects, or you can choose custom ones that better reflect your gender identity. Now, here's a little trick that people have been doing on LinkedIn. I want to get your thoughts on it. So get ready to unmute yourself. So a lot of people are saying, hey, here's a way I can promote myself. I'm going to take this as my custom pronoun, click the save button, and look what happens right next to my LinkedIn profile as soon as this actually saves and it's done. It says LinkedIn expert. Look at that. I just got the opportunity to promote myself as a LinkedIn expert to everybody who sees it. Do we think this is a good idea or a bad idea? There are no right or wrong answers.
Wonderful idea.
But I think it's a great idea from the perspective of it does present you. I think the concern that I have is that it does take away the power of something from a marginalized community. And I would be hesitant to actually do that because there is value to what's being done in terms of people being able to have their gender identity expressed that way. So I usually advise folks against doing it because I think it should be saved for the purposes for which it is intended. There's another thing right over here where there's a name pronunciation tool. Now you can set this up actually only on the LinkedIn app, but take a listen to this. So my name is a hard name.
Chaim.
Can you guys hear that? So that's me pronouncing my name. So people potentially, when they're engaging with me, could actually pronounce my name. Now, a lot of people have used that same thing to promote themselves. Hi, Chaim Shapiro, LinkedIn consultant for all your LinkedIn needs. But I advise folks against that because, again, I think the purpose of that thing, now for the strict purpose of actually having it for promoting yourself, yes, that can help you promote yourself. But I don't know if I want to take away from the power and the value that it adds to the folks who really do need it. But there's no right or wrong answer to that. Okay, I'm just going to move down here. You also want to choose your industry. So these actually are from a number of choices over here. You can start typing in different things and it gives you ones that you can click. What's that? It gives you ones you can type in. If your industry is not there, try to get as close to it as possible. Just so you know, LinkedIn is currently in the process of adding a bunch of new industries, which is a great change. They're actually in a full list is going to be out soon. And they didn't have this up until now. It was much more limited. So it is definitely much better that they have these things in here now. So definitely get that as close to your actual profession as possible, because when people are doing searches, they're going to do searches for you based on your industry. Last thing I'm going to show you here is location. So you see here, I have my postal code. And even though I live in a little town called West Hempstead on Long Island, I chose the New York City metropolitan area as the location to put down here because people outside of the New York City area know New York City. They don't know West Hempstead. So I want to make sure they understand where it is that I live. Okay, any questions about anything here on this part, the basic information, introduction, that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So with the gender identification part, your pronouns part, like I have work experience that I work with LGBTQIA office, but I do not identify as one of them. But I put my pronouns there, he, him, to work with them. So you're saying since I don't identify, I should remove it?
No, I think he, him is fine. Because if he, him is how you identify, that's fine. What I'm saying is I wouldn't put in a little sales pitch for yourself here.
Okay.
You understand? If you identify as he, him 100%, that's perfectly fine. You don't have to identify as LGBTQI in order to do that. I think you don't want to put in LinkedIn expert there because that has nothing to do with your gender identity.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Okay,
yes.
Thank you for that question. So I'm going to move on here to the actual next part of the LinkedIn profile, which is the background image. Now, I think your background image is also very important because it comes in, you have a generic background image that doesn't, people can't see that. You're not being presented in the best possible way. So you want to make this something that helps promote your brand. So you see here is a person who claims he's an expert at giving LinkedIn workshops to college students. I have a picture here of me giving a LinkedIn workshop to college students, which really sells and presents me in a great possible way. Just to show you here, you can manipulate these pictures. I actually chose this picture like this because there was a cup here in the way, but you have to be careful. You see, I'd love to have the photo of these folks' faces over here, but the way LinkedIn is set up is they have your photo over here in this corner. There is no way to change that. So I am stuck with the fact that those people are a little bit cut off, and I don't like it, but it is what it is. So what can you do? But you could definitely edit the photo and try to do your best to make sure you don't have anything of real extreme value over here. Okay. Next thing I want to show you is, you see this URL I have here, linkedin.com/in/Chaim Shapiro. You want to make sure you have a professional one. When you probably got yours, it probably defaulted to your name and a bunch of extra letters and numbers. And the way you change that is to go to edit public profile and URL right over here, click on that. Then if you go over here, this button right over here gives you the opportunity to change that. Once you change it, it's going to actually be your new LinkedIn URL. When it's your name, first name, last name, it's more professional. It's something you can use as their signature line on your LinkedIn, on your email addresses and things like that. Now, if your name is Chaim Shapiro, it won't be hard to get a name like Chaim Shapiro. If you have a more common name, it can be difficult. And that's when you want to do things like dashes in between the name, underscore. Potentially, this could be where I could write down Master's in Education or Board Certified Coach. But once you've got that, click it, click Save. I'm not going to click Save again because I don't want to change what I currently have. That'll be your new URL, and that will show up as your URL. Now, next thing you do, once you do that, make sure to refresh the page here on LinkedIn, because if you don't, it's very, very possible that if you make some other changes, it's not going to record those changes immediately because it's going to think you're on a separate page at that particular time. So any questions about anything we've spoken about so far? I see a couple things in the chat. This is being recorded, and hopefully we'll have the recording available through your career services office in a day or two. But yes, thank you all for muting yourselves. I definitely want to hear you if you have questions, but if the cross chat is what we're trying to avoid. Now, next thing here is to make sure your contact information is maximized. This is not an easy thing here to find on LinkedIn. If you go over here to contact info, you got to click on that. Then you got to click on this little pencil right over here. And this actually gives you the opportunity to include your contact information. Now, very important thing, make sure your email address is updated. I cannot tell you how many times I've come across incorrect old email addresses on LinkedIn that are no longer associated with the person. Just click on this button right over here. It'll give you the opportunity to set your primary email address and other email address that you currently have. And if you no longer have them, as soon as this opens up, there we go. I could actually remove an old email address so people are no longer associated with my account. Your primary one is the one that's going to show up over here. So that's the one you want to have as a more professional one. So usually it would be either your school account or your first name, last name at Gmail if you can get it. Now, I do include my cell phone number here. Yes, I do get spam calls because of that. And that's a problem. But look, I'll tell you, I get a lot of spam calls anyway. So I'd rather get a couple extra spam calls rather than miss a very, very important call. Personally, I prefer not to put my address in here. I don't think it's relevant to folks, and I don't want people showing up at my house. I do put my birthday, not the actual birth year, because there are people who send me birthday messages, which is actually a great way to engage folks. In addition, I have my personal website up over here. So you have a number of choices for websites, personal, company. So if you have chaimshapiro.com, just the basic website about me, a lot of students have their own personal website, which is their name, which could have their resume, basic information about them. It's a great thing to do as well. In addition, if you have a professional Twitter account, it's not a bad idea to put that up over here. Why? Because on LinkedIn, I'm usually talking about things that are related to career services and LinkedIn. If you watch and follow me on Twitter, I'll be talking about how my Chicago Cubs beat the Oakland Athletics last night. And if you're a baseball fan, it's a great opportunity for somebody potentially to engage me about something else rather than what I'm talking about here professionally. Okay. Any questions about the contact information or the first part of the profile that we've spoken about so far? No questions?
Excuse me. Sorry. I have a
please.
question. I'm a full-time student and and I don't have any job experience yet. So what should I put in the headlines for the new students who are looking for any internship or any kind of small jobs? So,
Right. So I would focus it on the skills that you bring that actually make you somebody that they want to hire you for an intern. So what profession are you looking into?
I'm looking into any IT related job or
Okay.
internship.
So if you were, say, aspiring computer science professional with experience in Java, C++, and all those other things, SQL, and something like that, but actually give me the information that I would want to know as a potential person hiring you for an internship. So I'm confident that when I actually look up your profile, that you have the skills to come in seamlessly and start working as an intern in my company. Does that answer your question?
Yes, got it.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, great. So I want to keep moving down the profile here, and these great questions, keep them coming. Now, this is something that's a little more controversial here. Sometimes you might have seen people have an open to work frame around their name. This is how you do that. If you don't see that here, add profiles to add open to, you'll be able to add this section. Now you see here, if I click on this, when this opens up, you'll see that I actually say that I am open to jobs as Director of Career Services and whatnot, on site or potentially remote in the New York City area, but I only have this open for people who are using the paid LinkedIn recruiter platform. I am very, very happy at Turo. I've been here 15 and a half years, but if somebody offered me $1 million to come work for them, that's something I would not only consider, probably jump on right away. So I don't want to say that I'm not interested in that. So I leave it open for recruiters who could potentially see me and say, all right, he's interested. Let me actually express and see if he's interested in a particular position. Now, if you want everyone to see it, you need to change this to all LinkedIn members to see that you're open. If I click this, and I click the save button, and when I go back over here, you'll actually see that this, as soon as the page refreshes, it should have added the open to work frame around my picture. Now, there's a little bit of a split amongst LinkedIn experts as to whether this is valuable or not. See here, says open to work. It's one of the first things people are going to see when they're engaging with your profile. I will say I am in the minority of LinkedIn experts on this, and that I personally believe it's not the best idea to actually have that on there. I would usually advise people not to do it. So what are the two sides to this? The two sides are, obviously, you have open to work, more people are going to see that you're looking for a position, and potentially they'll be able to help you find those positions. That's a great thing. On the other hand, do I want open to work to be exactly the first thing people see and associate with my account? You know, there are a lot of things that are much more important to me than the fact that I'm open to work. And I'm not sure that I want that to be the identification that people first make when they're making a quick assessment on my profile. So that's something you need to judge. I say about 60% of consultants say to do it. I'm in the 40% that advise against it and just say to post it and let other people know in other ways. And the way to get rid of that actual frame again is just simply go in here, click on this little button one more time, and then change this back to recruiters only. And then as soon as I refresh the page after I click save, that's going to change that back so that only recruiters see it and it doesn't have the open to work frame on there. Okay. See a question. Is there a question in the chat? What if unemployed? So there's something called career breaks that you can put up there. But if you're a student, it's probably better to focus on the student than it and the fact that you're in school than it is to have the career breaks. So that's probably what I would advise. If it's possible to have your education section up there, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes, that's probably what I would focus it on. Because a lot of people expect you not to be working in professional jobs when you're actually still in school. Okay, so we're going to move down the profile here a little bit further. And question?
Yeah, hi.
Yeah.
So I wanted to know, there was a section providing services next to open to work. So how have you added that section? And
So if you go to,
okay.
If you go to the open, so everyone can see it. I usually don't include this in the session with college students because most college students are not providing services, professional services. But the open to, you'll be able to add that and add it over here and change it so people can see the services that you actually provide, and you can choose them up over here and let people know. That way, if somebody's looking for interview prep or different things, they can include that there and let them see it. Again, I don't usually include that in my entry level or college level session because usually 95% of the time it doesn't apply to students, but you definitely add that. And we'll talk towards the end of the session about how you can add sections that aren't currently on here if they are relevant to you, because that does happen frequently. Thank you so much for the question. Other questions? So I'm going to skip by creator mode because usually that's not something that's relevant to students as well. Featured section. Now, if you don't currently see this on your profile, go to add profile section. And then you want to go to where it is under recommended, I believe, and add featured. This gives you the opportunity to actually share visual content that people can engage with. The way you add things over here, click the plus button, add a post, an article, a link, potentially media, so people could actually see this. Now, as the person who claims again that he can give an excellent LinkedIn workshop, I don't just say that. People can come right here to my profile, click on this button, and they can actually get a video of one of my LinkedIn workshops. And guess what, guys? You guys are going to be featured on this next time I update this, because that's the next video that I'm going to have. But it helps sell me in a way that I haven't been able to do just by saying that the fact that I'm a LinkedIn expert. It actually shows people what it is that I've done and how I'm able to do it. So I think it's very important to add something featured. A lot of students have presentations that they've done, PowerPoint presentations and other things. This is a great place to put it. But you'll see here, in addition to that, one of the other things you can do is you can upload your resume as a document and put it on there as well. I'm not looking for a job, so I use this as an example. But if I have somebody who is on LinkedIn and sees my resume and they want to send it to somebody they're working with who is not particularly astute at LinkedIn, they can download this resume right onto their desktop and then send that in. So you could add that there as well. Another important thing here is that only the first 3 things that are featured, the ones people are going to see, very few people are clicking these buttons to see all this other stuff over here. So it's important to have your more important stuff first and second, and you reorder it with that button right over there. So I go over here. So I would move this down because that's not the one that I want. And then when I go back over here, see it changes it around. So the featured is actually going to feature the ones that are more important to my profile, as opposed to the ones that I had here as an example for students. Okay. Got to keep moving down the profile if there aren't any questions. Activity section. Now, 95% of the time, you want to have this set to comments and posts that you're making, but you can't change it to comments. What I was trying to say here, this is a new feature here. So if your videos or articles or newsletter are more important, you could actually change it to that. For 95% of the people, the posts that you make are the ones you want to highlight over there. Next thing here I want to show you is the about section, which is right down over here. Again, if you don't have that, go to add profile section. You should be able to add it pretty easily. Now, I was once giving a session and I said that nobody likes Seymour, and somebody got very upset at me because their name was Seymour. But what I wasn't actually saying that nobody likes a person named Seymour. What I was saying is, on social media, very few people are going to click the Seymour button to see your entire about section. So the stuff that's up here on the top of your about section is the most important stuff, because this is the stuff many more people are going to see than they're going to see if they click the see more button. Now I have a bunch of other stuff on here because it's searchable, and if somebody's very interested in me, they can definitely see it, and I want them to see it because it does present me in a positive way. The stuff above the fold is much more important. Now, this is something LinkedIn just added in the last couple of weeks. You might not actually have it yet. It's on phase rollout. But you can actually add your top skills to your about section. This puts your skills much higher up on your profile, lets people see them. Let me just show you how to do that. This is where you edit the about section. And you see here, I made sure there were spaces that I had the most important stuff here. But this down over here is where you add those skills to your section as well. So you see here, I added these 5 skills. That's all you can add is 5. So if I want to add another skill, I'd have to click out of this. Then it gives me the ability to add the skill. And I could choose whichever skill that's already on my profile. We'll talk about skills in a little bit. And just click that back and click save. I also advise folks to choose this in order rank. Put your most important skill first, second, third, fourth, fifth, because I also think it's really true that the further along you go on a profile, the less likely people are to read it. So keep your top stuff up there on the left as opposed to moving it over to the right. Any questions about anything we've spoken about in the last like 6, 7, 8 minutes? I thought that's fine. I'll move on to the work experience. Again, if you're, we're going to talk about your collegiate experience as well. So if you don't have work experience, don't worry about that. We're going to be able to talk about that as well. So Cherry University is my work experience. A couple of very important things to point out here. So first of all, this little edit button allows me to edit my work experience. If I go in here, then I got to push the edit button one more time. First thing you want to do, toggle this to off. Somebody asked a question about changing things on LinkedIn on a regular basis, which I think makes sense, but you don't want to have happen is having people notify that you made a small change to your LinkedIn profile. You want to only have that on when you're changing jobs. So toggle this to off unless you're actually changing jobs. So you actually put in your job title. And here's the important part. You want to make sure that you're actually syncing your job to your company's profile. Look what happens here. You see this little logo over here? If I get rid of the Y on Turo, look what happened to that. It disappeared here. I need to get the auto suggest Turo University here. Click on that. That's going to make sure the logo shows up, number one, but also make sure that when people are doing searches for people who work at Turo University, that my name does show up in those searches as well. So it's very important to make sure you sync that. It's the first thing you should do. Definitely looks a lot nicer when you actually sync it. A couple other things I want to show you here is that you see here, LinkedIn should have a bullet feature. They don't. I don't know why they don't have a bullet feature, because they should make this in a way that actually formats it correctly. But I just took the bullets right off of my resume and popped them in here. Now, they don't look perfect. Definitely they don't, because the spacing is a little bit off. And I definitely would like to see LinkedIn change that. But definitely, I think it's better to have that as opposed to a big block of text. And by the way, when you're changing things on a regular basis, these are things you can change. You do new things, you could add new things to that. And you also see here on my work experience that I've had multiple positions here at Turo. I started off as an assistant director, and it shows this continuity right over here. We're going to make sure that happens to make sure these line up. So you see here, I completed the assistant director position in July of 2016, and I started the director position July 2016. It also works if I put August 2016 there as well. If I actually switched that to September 2016, it would separate into two separate positions, which is what I wanted to try to avoid. Okay. One last thing to show you here also, because a lot of people, in addition to their full-time job, have their side hustle. That's my social media consultant job. And occasionally for folks, their side hustle becomes more important than their main job. Well, you could switch that. Click the reorder button up over here. And if I go down here and I pull this up to the top, and click out of this, it's going to move my social media consultant business to the top. And up here at the top of my profile, it's going to have that reflected as well, that my main position is the one that is the social media consulting. You'll see that right over here. That switched from Turo University to our consulting. Now I'm going to go back in here actually and change that back before my boss actually sees it. Now I want to ask you guys a question here. How many jobs and how far back do you guys think you should go in terms of work experience to include on your LinkedIn profile? Anybody want to jump in there and give me an idea how far back you should go? Any thoughts?
7 years.
So 7
10
years, yeah, 7 to 10 years are very common answers that I get all the time, because those are the things that people actually recommend that you include on your resume. Usually if anything that's more than 7 or 10 years old is not going to be relevant to you on your resume. But one of the great things about LinkedIn is that LinkedIn gives you the opportunity to include more things without taking up the space. You're not wasting space by having more jobs here. So if you look at my experience here, so it goes down for, I go back, okay, just over 10, 15 years. But if somebody wants to see all my other work experiences, they can, but they have to click the show all 9 experiences. Very few people are doing that. They're just going to see the ones that are above the top. But you know something? I have absolutely no problem with somebody going on here and seeing that I was actually working in a thrift store back actually before Bill Clinton was even president, hauling furniture and doing things like that. I wish I was still physically capable of hauling pianos like I was able to do back in those days. But to me, it was a positive work experience. It showed that I was willing to do things while I was in college, and it doesn't take away from the space. You're not limited in the same way you would be limited on a resume. So I think as long as it's a positive experience, there's no reason to include it. Just be aware that very few people are probably going to actually be checking that out. You're probably going to get, just a couple of people here and there looking at it. Most people are not going to click the show all 9 experiences and see that. So I think 10 years is 10 years is a great rule for a resume. I don't think you need to do that for your LinkedIn profile. You can include more as long as it's a positive work experience. Okay. Moving down to your education section. So this gives you the opportunity to let people know that you're a student at the University of Cumberland. Same thing here, by the way. Make sure to sync this with your university. So I go in here, and if I actually get rid of the E at UC Riverside, again, that moves away. Make sure to use the auto sync. When I go to this, it puts that in there. Plus, it'll allow people to actually see that I am an alum of that institution. That might not necessarily happen if I just put in UC Riverside without actually syncing it. Okay. You could also include some more information about activities and skills and things you've actually done. So you see here back in the day that I was the speaker of the Student Senate at Northeastern Illinois University and a chairman of a couple of committees that I included in there as well. Anybody here a college basketball fan? And remember like 5-6 years ago when my Loyola Ramblers made it to the Final Four in the NCAA tournament? The reason I bring that up is because when they were making their run, even though Loyola was further back than UC Riverside, I went in here and I reordered it for that 3 or 4 week run, put Loyola first, because that way people saw my profile up back here at the top. People saw Loyola University, and there's great conversation piece for people to talk about how well the basketball team was doing. You see here, Loyola University was then listed as my college as opposed to the more recent one. And then after they lost in the Final Four, about a couple months, I give them a couple months of first priority. And right after that, I went back in here and then changed it, because normally you want to be focused on your most recent work, your most recent collegiate experience, not things that are before that. So do that, and that's the education section. Any questions about work experience or education? Okay, so license and certifications. Some students have it, some don't. You could add that in the add profile section if you actually do have it. Now, this section I think is much, much more important, and a lot of people are not currently using this. Again, you go to add profile section, if you don't have this, you're able to add up to 50 skills here on LinkedIn that people can see. Now, if you've been following my sort of methodology on social media, which are the most important skills for me? Which ones do you think are the most important ones? The ones that are above the fold. In other words, these are searchable. Some people are looking and finding all my other skills. The skills that I really, really want people to see are the ones they're going to see without clicking show all 46 skills. So that's why I have these 3 chosen as my top ones. 2 reasons. First of all, because LinkedIn is my thing. Also, because I'm endorsed by a pretty famous person for LinkedIn as well. And that helps present me and sell me in the best possible way in my mind. Now, you can go in here and change this to make sure you're representing your best skills there. By going over here, reorder is going to look a little different over here. You have to push this button first, then click reorder. I don't know why LinkedIn does that. What I can do then is say, well, you know, social media is more important than program development. Move that up, and it'll change it up here around it. There you go. And you'll see here that move that up, and that's going to be the first 3 that they're going to see. But I do think it's important for folks to go in here and put in skills that are relevant to them, that help sell them for the particular positions which they are searching, and make sure the top 3 are at the top. The way to add new skills is to click the plus button, and it'll give you some suggestions. We can start filling in other things as well. And let me give you another super hack here. If, for example, you wanted to find out what some of the skills that people at JP Morgan Chase were including in their profile, you can actually go to the company profile for JP Morgan Chase. You click the little people button right over here. And as soon as this opens, you scroll down, click the next button. It actually shows me what they're skilled at. So leadership, management, and a couple other things that are good things that are important. But let's say I want to find out what the information technology people are good at. I can actually sort by that and again, move this over, and it'll show me those things as well. Office and Excel are too generic to be the ones you want to include, but management, leadership, those things are more important. Now, I'm just going to clear this. I want to show you this also. One of the other things you could actually do is change this and put in University of Cumberland's, and look what this is going to show me. This is going to show me there are 32 people in the United States who are working at that particular company from the University of Cumberland. And guess what? You can actually see those folks. And if you wanted to engage somebody, you could click on one of their profiles, and this could give you potentially the opportunity to engage this person if you're looking for a job or just for advice or things like that. So that's a little hack there to make sure that your skills are highlighted and choosing the correct skills for your actual profile. If you have more technical skills, computer-based skills, they have something called demonstrate skills. Usually it gives you tests on things like Java, Microsoft Word, Excel, and those kinds of things. And it's a great little thing to put in there. And the way you do that is demonstrate skill right over here. And if you click on that, that'll give you the opportunity to take those tests. You only get the chance to take the test 3 times. You want to make sure that you pass rather than taking it and not do well. Any questions about skills or how to highlight them, how to make sure that people are seeing them, or make sure the top ones are there, choose the skills that are most appropriate? Questions? Yes, Rhonda.
Yeah, how do you reorder the stuff again? I'm trying to.
Sure. So the way you reorder it is if you go to this little pencil, and it's a little more complicated here. You go to this pencil.
But I'm under education.
So you want to get down, you want to go down to the skill section. If you don't currently see a skill section, you'll have to add it under add profile section. Add profile section, and
okay.
I think skills is under core, is it? Yeah, add skills, and that'll give you the opportunity to add skills to your profile. And then after that, you can reorder it. This is a little flaw on LinkedIn because the reorder button is not the same here. Okay, so it's slightly
Okay.
different. Plus, one more thing I want to show you here is for each of these skills, you can actually tag them to the different jobs where you use them. So if I click on LinkedIn here, you see it gives me the opportunity to choose which positions I've actually utilized that skill in. So I hear this one and that one, and I click save. The reason that's important is because if people don't make it all the way down to your skill section, you see that again, consistent theme. The further down you go, less likely people are to read it. But if somebody's up here on my Turo actual account, they could actually see the skills that I actually used right over here. That's much more likely they're going to see that. And you can actually go through each of the skills that you have and make sure to sync that to the employment opportunity or even the school opportunity where you're best able to demonstrate those skills or where you've used those skills. So I think it's a very important thing to do as well. Other questions? Okay, so I want to move on to recommendations. Recommendations to me are much more important than endorsements. See here, a couple people have clicked that they say that I'm an expert in program development or LinkedIn and those things. Very, very easy to click a button. Actually having a narrative where somebody actually tells me something, where they're saying something more full about what it is that I do is more of a perspective and gives people a better idea of who I am. So I think it's very important for everybody to try to get multiple recommendations. Now, recommendations wouldn't be from your roommate or from a friend. Usually it'd be for somebody who will be in a senior position, somebody who's hired you, somebody who is your manager, things like that are the people you're usually trying to get. And the way you add this, you click the plus button over here, ask for recommendation. And this worked when I did it yesterday. Let's see if it works again. So I type in Russell's name here. And there he is. I could actually, I'm not going to actually send it to him, but I could actually go through in here and select how you know him. He hired me as a client of mine and position, whatever. But here, this is the important part. Never send this because this is says send me a recommendation. What I would say here is, hi, Russell, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be back at the University of Cumberland's giving a LinkedIn presentation. Would you mind giving me a recommendation that describes how the session went and some of the strengths and how you would recommend it to other people? And then if he does decide to do that, then he can, if he wants to, and I'll actually go into my pending folder and give me the opportunity to approve that if I want. Now, obviously, I can't put anything up until he puts it up, and he can't put anything on my profile without my approval. So you see here under show all pending, I have one that's pending here where somebody tried to troll me. I go down over here, this person, Toy Van, whatever, perfect liars for free. He was saying that I'm a perfect gentleman or whatever it is. He said it over here. What he was trying to do is troll me. If I put it on my profile, I think it was funny because there's something on my profile that actually looks really, really terrible. I just keep him here as an example now. There's absolutely no reason to actually have that there. You could just dismiss it, but I keep it there again because I want to have it as an example to show that nobody can actually put that on your profile. Another thing you can do is, for example, Chloe gave me a great recommendation here. If I wanted to go in and ask Chloe for small changes on this, I can go in over here and send her a personalized message. Could you change? And tell her, could you just focus on the fact that I was interactive during my session and brought students into the equation? And if she chooses to do that and does save it and send it back, I can add that if I want, but she can't put it in without my approval. And obviously I cannot change it for her. Now, I think it's a good idea to try to get to between, let's say, 3 and 5 recommendations here on LinkedIn, because I tend to believe that's sort of a good number that starts to push you up in the search rankings here on LinkedIn. I can't prove that, but I do think having multiple recommendations does help you. Now, that's the long and the short bit about the LinkedIn profile itself. Again, there could be a lot of other things here that might be relevant to your profile that you want to include. And the way to actually add that is the add profile section. So for some folks, this additional button will be very important. Volunteer experience, publications. I actually had a client at a session once who had a patent, honors and awards. Now, test scores, this doesn't refer to, getting a 95 on your midterm in your technology class. This is usually things, kind of grades you got on the CPA exam and things like that, the high level scores. But these are all things that you could add to your profile that make it more robust. And the idea is to really choose the things that help sell you in the best possible way. What is most important for people to know about you? LinkedIn used to give you the opportunity to actually choose the order in which things are set on your profile. It's stagnant now. You can't actually do that. So you want to make sure that you're really focus on the stuff at the top. But look, you know, if somebody's very interested in you, there's absolutely no reason not to include more stuff here towards the bottom to give them a wider and broader perspective of who you are and what you're able to bring to the table. So any questions at all about what we talked about for the LinkedIn profile itself before I move into how to look for and find jobs? Also means I need a drink break. Any questions at all about the profile? So if not, I want to move into the job section right over here. Now to find jobs, you click on this little button over here. Just want to show you a tool that nobody is using currently, but it has a great interview prep tool right over here. You're not going to see this on this now because I recorded these earlier, but if you record one now, you can click the practice button, record a video, and actually it's microphone error right now. But the point is that if you actually do this, it actually gives you some artificial intelligence readout as to how you actually did on those answers. So it'll give you a little bit of a perspective as to whether you're talking in the right pace, whether you use right intonation, if you say things like that. It's really a great way to see how you did, because a lot of places you actually use these kinds of interviews for interview practice or for actually interviewing students currently. So you want to get that. Plus, one of the great things is after you make your video, you can request feedback. I can go on here and send this to my local neighborhood friendly career services professional and ask them to review how I did on that video. Only they'll have access to it. And that way I can get their feedback and see actually if I did well in that interview and get their feedback. It's a great free tool that nobody's using under the jobs tab. I think more people should use it. But how do you look for jobs? So here on the job, I can start looking for, and you see, I did this search here before. I did accountant in Knoxville metropolitan area. So that's one of the things that I put up over here. And you'll see this is going to actually show me some of those jobs that meet those actual particular criteria. Now, a couple of very important things to point out here. First of all, you see here, meet the hiring team. So I have the opportunity to reach out to this person. I can't message her, I'm guessing, because she's a third degree. If it was a second degree or had an open profile, she would actually let me do that. But I'm not going to pass up the opportunity to engage with her. What I'm going to do is actually go to her profile. And then over here, I'm going to click on what is it, a connect button and add a personalized message that tells her that I'm looking for a position at her company. So that gives me the opportunity to engage with her directly. But that's one of the things you can do here that you really cannot do on a lot of other websites where you're applying for jobs. So it gives you the power to do that. Let's just see if there's a couple examples here. So you see right over here, here's a good example. You see here, when I'm applying for this job, there are 4 of my personal connections that actually work at this company. So if I wanted to apply, I can go on over here and say, hey, Adina, do you mind sending me some information or some thoughts about what I can do in order to maximize my opportunity at your company when I'm applying for a job? In addition to that, you'll see here there are 7 school alumni that are there as well. So I can potentially reach out to my fellow alumni and ask them for that same kind of advice. So it's a way to take some things that are really cold leads, just applying through what we call the slush pile, just things that are out there in general, and turn them into warm leads. So I think it's a very, very powerful way to turn your application into something more powerful. Now, it's not going to always show you who the recruiter is. So you might not be able to see that, but I think it's definitely important to go on here and try to find out who you know in order to make your application process a little easier. I think I saw a question came up here. Somebody asked me the question that I get at every single session. I'm glad they asked that. They asked me if I have a premium account. And the answer to that question is no. That, in my opinion, LinkedIn tries to sell people on their premium accounts. For 95% of people who are students who are looking for jobs, it's not going to make that much of a difference. There's a little bit more data. Some people argue it kicks you up in the rankings a little bit higher, but I think these are all things you can do by using the system better. And I would say save your money. It's only people who are really advanced users that it pays to pay $35, $40 a month on a premium account. If you want to try it, LinkedIn usually gives folks a free month of premium per year. Just make sure to cancel it in time and see if it helps. And if it helps, it helps. If it doesn't help, then you don't need, there's no harm, no foul. Okay, another question I get here in the job tab. Well, this looks like a great job, but I'm on my cell phone on the train. What you could actually do is actually click the save button over here, and you can actually go back to that later. And the way you find that is actually a little bit complicated. If I go back to view profile, I'll show you one more thing here in a second. Go back to my view profile. I'll take your questions in a second. If I go to show all 5 resources, it's going to show me under my items that this particular thing is set right over here. And I can go right back into that and click the apply button and apply for those jobs. And one other thing you can actually do here, so you see I look for accountant, you can change this to whatever you like, but you can set up alerts. So LinkedIn sends you an alert either every day or every week to make sure you're not missing any of the jobs that are relevant to you and your search term. You can change the area, you can change the experience level to make sure I only want internships, I only want remote, on-site, remote, whatever you want, and then click that and it will send you job alerts again, either every day, every 3 days, or every 7 days that meet those criteria, just to make sure that you're not missing any of those things. And then you can check that from your email, from your LinkedIn account, and make sure that you can apply so you don't miss them. It is a job board aggregator, so you will find times where it includes jobs to the same company that were posted in multiple different places. I see a couple of questions coming up, so I'd like to take 2 questions that we have. I think Rohan?
Yeah, so you mentioned that interacting with recruiters, but whenever I try to do that, and someone said, I think in the chat about it, it tells me that I have to have premium, and it does allow me to interact with them because it's saying I need to buy the premium package.
So that's where they're trying to sell you on buying premium. Let me show you the way around that. The way I did it is the way around that. Let's see if we can get back to that search, if it's on the same one here. Okay, so this was, I have it right here. Look, this message is locked. It's going to tell me buy premium. Now, there are some recruiters who have what's called an open profile, lets you get to them. Yes, it's going to tell me buy premium and you can contact this person. It's wonderful. You don't need to do that because you can contact that person anyway. How do you do that? Just click on their profile. When you click on their profile, you could actually send them a connect request. When you're sending a connection request, always add your note. Say, hey, I saw there's a job opening at X, Y, and Z. I want to very much talk to you about my passion and expertise and the fit between me and that position. Send it to them and you've engaged them absolutely free without paying for premium.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. Nancy, question?
Yeah, my question was on the similar line. So when the profile is logged, as in the messages are logged, we can go to the connect and request for a connect. But in case the connection, you need a premium account to even connect sometimes.
No, you shouldn't need a premium account. What actually ends up happening is it actually hides it behind something else. You should never need a premium account in order. See if I can find an example of this in one of these.
Please.
Yeah. So if you're seeing it like, and it doesn't here, this one here, Christy is a 3rd degree. So it's not going to have a connect button over here. See this? This is not having it as a follow button, not a connect button.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it looks like I can connect. That's actually not accurate. Click on the more button. It's hiding connect under there.
Okay.
Then you
Okay.
could add your note and do the same thing. It's a great question. Yeah, a question I get all the time. You still
Okay.
think, well, now I need
Thank
the
you.
button. There's no other way to get to it. You can always get to it through the more button. And that's the way to avoid it. LinkedIn hates me, by the way. I think one of the reasons they don't like me is I tell people how to get around paying for their system. And they don't like that because I save people a lot of money. But you know something? I don't want people paying back their student loans on things that they can get actually for free. So to me, that is a very, very important thing. Okay.
That's a good suggestion. Thank you.
Yeah. So somebody asked a question in the chat. They see a job application and has a lot of people applying for it. Yeah. Unfortunately, people apply very, very quickly nowadays. I always say, when I first started applying for jobs many years ago, to send a resume cost me money. I had to get resume paper, I had to get a stamp, I had to get an envelope, I had to type it, I had to all this stuff. It was about $1 per resume that I mailed to folks. So I was only sending in applications when I was really interested in working for somebody. Nowadays, it's a button. So people apply without thinking, which is why I think trying to find that warm connection, through the jobs is a much better way than just applying amongst the 200. If 200 people apply, but you're one of the 5 who reached out to somebody who works at the company, you've moved yourself up the list there a little bit, right? So I think that's a really great way to make sure that you're doing that in the appropriate way. And at least even if you're contacting the recruiter and they see that you know what you're doing, that's also a great way to make sure that you're getting noticed by those folks. Other questions? We have about 5 minutes left. I'd like to save the last 5 minutes for questions. There are other things that I can show you, but I want to see if anyone has any questions about anything we've spoken about tonight. So about your LinkedIn profile, about looking for jobs, using the interview, setting up your skills. Yes, please.
So I put it in the chat over there, and I know somebody responded to it, but it's not usually entry-level jobs. It's any level. It's like executive director positions where it's posted.
Yes.
And then, a few hours later or several hours later, it's like 200, 300 applicants.
Yes. but you can actually set it to find those kinds of jobs. So I chose accountant in the, I can do experience level here. So I can turn in internship and entry level and filter by those results. And this will limit it. So it's fewer matches, but fewer things that might be along those lines. And that's the alert I'm going to set up for myself, because I don't want the ones that 200 people are applying for that take 10 years of experience. This allows me, and you have to play around the terms. It could be accounting, it could be accountant, it could be, staff accountant, it could be associate accountant. You got to play around with it to get the ones that actually get the ones positions that you like. But that's the way to do it, to make sure you're getting things that are more in line with what it is that you're looking for. I see William has a question, please.
Yes, I got in about 10 minutes after you started. Wasn't
Mhm.
sure if you addressed this, but did you happen to mention the courses by chance? Is that something that people should look
There's a link to
into?
the courses you can get. It's actually a premium on LinkedIn Learn.
Yes, okay. So I just happen to have a free year of of the premium, so I'm just trying to take advantage of it. But
Yeah, I think there's a lot. Actually, it's funny. I actually had breakfast about 2 years ago. The person who actually started that website, it was actually called Lynda.com first. Interesting guy. Look, there's definitely value to it. I think I would definitely take advantage of it when you have it for free. The question to me, is it worthwhile to pay for premium to do it? The trick for this is a lot of school libraries have access to LinkedIn Learning that you could access without paying for it. So there could be some valuable stuff that you can access. So you find out if the Cumberland's library has access to that, because that's one way of getting it without paying for it. But yeah, if you have the free year, knock yourself out. Yeah, use that to
Appreciate it.
your advantage, 100%. Other
Thank you so
questions?
much.
We have about another 2-3 minutes.
I have one quick one. What's
Yes,
the
please.
difference between message and connect? Because,
Great question. So when you actually connect with somebody, it's going to send them a message, but this is of the messages that I have with people. It goes beyond just the connection I have with somebody. So you see here, I sent Mark a birthday message today here. Happy birthday. He responded to me. We connected many, many, many years ago. Okay. Here, Johnny asked me a couple questions. His original connection request is up here at the top. So one of the great things about connection requests, and the reason to personalize it is there's always that record of that conversation right over here. This is what he connected to me with, but those conversations can continue for many, many years in that same thread. So you're able to see what you talked about and continue those conversations. Does that make sense?
sure does. Thank you. Yep.
Awesome. Other questions? Got about a minute or two left.
Hi, I just have a quick question.
Yes, please.
So for entry-level programmers, we are heavily dependent on the projects we make, like the programs we make. So how can we highlight that in our profile?
Great question. There's a couple of places I would do that. First place that I would do that is to make sure to include your professional portfolio in your website. So we go to website information right over here. You would go down over here and go to website and choose portfolio. Then include the link to your portfolio there, so they have access to that. In addition to that, I think almost more importantly than that is I'd feature some of that stuff right up over here. Put your link to your portfolio, put your link to some of your stuff right up over here, so people can access that very, very easily from your account. Okay?
Okay, thank
Other
you.
questions? You got a minute left? William, is your hand up? Or is that still an old Okay, so it doesn't look like we have any other questions. So I think I'm gonna, and it's 7 o'clock exactly, so I'm gonna hand it back to Russell. Thank you so much for having me. It's really a pleasure coming back. Look, this is great. It was great to have the engaged crowd and people asking questions. And we hope to have the video ready sometime in the relatively near future. And you can contact Russell, I'm sure, in order to get that. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Chaim, and thank you everyone for coming tonight. I know everyone's got a busy schedule.